Hello, friends, and welcome to the National Constitution Center. It is wonderful to welcome you to tonight's discussion of America's Town Hall. I'm Jeffrey Rosen, the president and CEO of this wonderful institution. Let's start, as always, by inspiring ourselves with the Constitution Center's mission statement. Here we go. The National Constitution Center is the only institution in America chartered by Congress to increase awareness and understanding of the U.S. Constitution among the American people on a nonpartisan basis. Beautiful. You guys did it so well. That was absolutely inspiring. It is great to welcome you to our discussion of democracy and France and America. We're joined by very special guests tonight. The co-chair of the National Constitution Center, Justice Stephen Breyer. And we're also honored to be joined by the former French Foreign Minister, Christiane Taubira.
Justice.
Justice Minister.
Justice Minister. Well, it says Foreign Minister, but Justice Minister is even better, and we're so honored that you're here. It's also wonderful to sponsor tonight's program with Villa Albertine, which is the French Institute for Culture and Education, and I'm going to read some thank yous. We're so grateful to Mohamed Boubala, who's the director of Villa Albertine, Judith Rose, the deputy director, Linda Fenois, and Yann Lemerdi, and especially to Florence Hermitier, who is the liaison magistrate at the Embassy of France, who reached out and created this great program. It's now a special pleasure to welcome the Consul General of France in Washington, D.C., who is Caroline Monvoisin, who will offer a few words of introduction. Caroline.
The National Constitution Center for hosting the French Embassy and Villa Albertine, the French Institute for Culture and Education, for this fascinating panel discussion examining French and American perspectives on democracy. And where better than Philadelphia for this third installment in our series on democracy in an age of uncertainty. After the initial conversation at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library in Washington, D.C., and the second panel hosted by Howard University last fall, we are thrilled to continue this transatlantic program at the National Constitution Center, a natural home for the kind of discussions we hope to foster. It's truly an honor to explore such issues here, a place that is so symbolic of the birth of democracy and so important for civic education, amid so many engaged students, scholars, citizens, and public figures. This series was created with one simple goal in mind: bringing together a broad audience, spanning generations and backgrounds, for open, honest, and forward-looking conversations about democracy, how it was built, how it's experienced, and how it could be renewed. We are especially honored to welcome two distinguished speakers this evening. Justice Stephen Breyer, a former Associate Justice of the US Supreme Court, whose work has shaped how generations of Americans understand the Constitution, the rule of law, and the responsibilities of democratic institutions. And Christiane Taubira, a former French Minister of Justice, who authored and defended some of the most consequential civil rights legislation in recent French history. A stateswoman, writer, and moral voice in public life, she continues to be a powerful advocate for justice, memory, and equality. Their joint presence offers us a rare opportunity to reflect on the similarities and differences between our democratic experiences, as well as the urgent challenges we must face together, among them disinformation and renewed civic engagement. Democracy isn't something we can take for granted. It is nurtured and upheld by citizens who speak up, reach out and stay involved. So tonight, let's ask ourselves, what can we learn from each other's constitutional traditions and civic cultures? How do we encourage young people to see themselves as full participants in democratic life? And what kind of responsibility do we all bear in this shared moment of democratic uncertainty? Before I hand it over to Jeffrey Rosen, President and CEO of the National Constitution Center, who will moderate this evening's conversation, I would be remiss if I didn't emphasize that tonight's discussion would not have been possible without the generous support of the Judy and Peter Blum Kovler Foundation. I also want to reiterate my deep gratitude for our close partnership with the National Constitution Center. You have my heartfelt thanks. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful evening, and we are looking forward to welcoming you again on October 21st at the Atlantic Council in Washington, D.C. for the next Democracy series. Bonne soirée à tous, and over to you, Jeffrey.
Thank you so much. Well, let's begin with the first question that Caroline Monvoisin has set for us, which is what can America and France learn from each other's democratic experiences? Justice Breyer, the founders of the United States read great writers from the French Enlightenment, including Condorcet. They read the Greek and Roman classics, and they read figures of the English Enlightenment, like Locke and Sidney. What did they take from this reading as they formulated the principles of the American idea as expressed in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution?
You see, he knows. He just wrote a book on this subject. And I did read it, but I know secondhand. All right? What they took, what you said they took. And you said you spent 8 years reading everything they read. Maybe not 8, but quite a few.
One.
Quite a few. We have virtues, says Cicero. My Latin class, I never quite got all the Latin. But the virtue of the stomach was temperance. The virtue of the heart, courage. The virtue of the mind, wisdom. And put it together, we have reason. Now, there is no country in the world that bases what it values on reason so much as France. Isn't that true?
Right.
It is right.
Right.
It is right.
Right, right.
But could we here in this city, could we form a government that what? If a person allows reason, you know, I have several grandchildren living in my house. There is no reason in that house. But, I will tell you, if we want to pursue happiness, says Jeff, we will try to guide our lives through reason. Now, only a few feet from here, the founders said, can we create a nation where reason will predominate? And the answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. We have had slavery. You had Boulanger. I don't know about Boulanger, if he was good or bad, but nonetheless. All right. Can we? Madison said yes. Why? He said the country is so big. We will have factions everywhere. They're bad factions. They're bad. They just don't think. They just, okay. But this is such a big country that they'll wear themselves out crossing this big country. And he thought it will take a lot of time to cross the country. And we have a system of government that is so complicated. It's what Hegel said when Hegel died. He said, only one person has ever understood me, and he didn't understand me. All right? That is the government of the United States. And that is what we go through. Big country? No. Try the jet plane. Takes a long time to communicate? No. Try. What are these things that my grandchildren can work? They're internet. All right? Is our government complicated? Yes, it still is complicated. And what did they think in France about what they were trying to do in Philadelphia? I think, je vais dire ceci en français. Qu'est-ce qu'ils ont pensé de ce qui arrive aux États-Unis? Ils ont pensé, en France, peut-être. Peut-être.
So I'll say this in French. What did they think in France of what was happening in the United States? They thought in France, maybe.
But they think the same thing every college professor and law school professor thinks of anyone in public life. Yeah. Maybe it will work and maybe it won't. And that is why Abraham Lincoln said, and can I say this? Do I bang you on too much?
Of course. Please.
My wife said to my grandchildren, mes petits-fils, she said, I will pay $20 to anyone who memorizes, ça c'est appris par cœur, who memorizes Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Why? Listen to it. Listen to the first 2 lines. 77 years ago. Why 77? That's not the Constitution. That is the Declaration of Independence. Why 77 years ago? Because that's where Jefferson says all men are created equal. It does not say that in the Constitution. Okay? 77 years ago, our fathers created on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. We are now engaged in a great war to see whether, pour voir si, this nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. What did he mean? Any nation, this nation, they are experiments. Now that's a difficult word in French. Quelque chose comme expérience ou experiments. Experiments. And that's what I tell the 12th grade students. I say, you, my friend, this document is no longer mine. It's yours. And you, my friend, must see that it works. You have to take over and see that the skeptics, was Voltaire a skeptic? I don't know, might be, yeah. You will see whether those skeptics were right or wrong, and I sincerely hope you will show that they were wrong, that this experiment can succeed. And that's why, to be a little bit light in this, Churchill said, the United States of America always does the right thing after trying first everything else possible. All right, that's where we are. That's as much as I know at this moment. I don't know what's going to happen. I think we'll all work on it, try to make it work out well. Madame.
Beautiful, beautifully said. Minister Taubira, you've heard Justice Breyer talk so inspiringly about the American idea, liberty, equality, and government by consent. The French idea, embodied in the Declaration of Rights, is liberté, égalité, fraternité. Talk about the French philosophers and the Enlightenment philosophers that the French revolutionaries read when they wrote the Declaration of Rights, and to what degree does that emphasis on reason that Justice Breyer mentioned pervade the French idea?
For French people, I have to apologize because I'm not quite able at the present time to speak English, so to speak American language.
No one thinks English is the American language. You're the first one.
As a matter of fact, in the judicial language, it's not the same language, British and American. So since last year, I'm working in Portuguese. So it's pretty hard for me to be able on such issues to talk English fluently. So I'm so sorry, but I won't be able to do so this evening. So, and as I knew that Justice Stephen Breyer is very, very francophile and francophone, I thought we were going to speak French. So I've got an interpreter who was going to make half of the job, the main part of the job, as a matter of fact. Donc, je vais parler français, mille excuses. Je vais essayer de parler lentement et clairement.
So I'm going to speak French. I'm so sorry. I'm going to try to speak slowly and clearly.
J'entends l'idée de la raison en France parce qu'effectivement, les grands philosophes des Lumières sont des philosophes de la raison qui ont extrait la pensée française de la domination religieuse. Parce que lorsque la philosophie de la...
Ça va. Oui, c'est gentil.
Lorsque la philosophie de la raison s'impose dans l'espace public français et même dans l'espace public européen, la France et les monarchies européennes sont en train de sortir de l'emprise du Vatican et de la reconnaissance du Vatican comme autorité morale et d'arbitrage.
I hear the idea of reason in France, because indeed the great Enlightenment philosophers were philosophers of reason who took French thought away from the domination of religion. Indeed, the philosophers of reason imposed in the French and the European space this thing that was happening as France and the European monarchies were moving away from the power of the Vatican and the Vatican as a moral arbiter.
Il faut cependant distinguer le champ de la raison, de la pensée, où la raison domine, donc le champ de la pensée où la raison domine, et le champ de la passion qui domine la vie sociale et la vie publique.
One must, however, distinguish between the field of thought, where reason dominates, and the field of passion, which dominates social and public life.
Pardon, parce que pendant toute la période des grands philosophes des Lumières, en fait, les luttes sociales et les luttes politiques sont extrêmement intenses et elles se traduisent par des débordements, de la démesure, donc un parti pris passionnel qui s'impose dans les rapports entre le peuple et le pouvoir.
Because during the period of the great Enlightenment philosophers, the social and political struggles were intense and translated as an ebullience, over-the-top behavior that led to a passion in the relationship with the people and those in power.
Et pour évoquer très vite un auteur qui est commun et qui a eu lui-même une passion commune pour la France et pour les États-Unis d'Amérique, je pense à Tocqueville. On ne peut pas rester un quart d'heure sans parler de Tocqueville. Nous sommes d'accord?
Please.
You agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to quickly evoke an author who had an equal passion for France and the United States, and it's Tocqueville, we can't speak more than a quarter of an hour in such an event, not bring up Tocqueville.
Tocqueville évoque, donc forcément la démocratie en Amérique, Tocqueville évoque très vite, sans les définir comme étant des passions, mais il évoque le patriotisme et la religion comme moteur de mobilisation des citoyens.
Tocqueville, I'm talking about democracy in America, of course, quickly evokes, without defining them as passions, the patriotism and religion as driving forces.
Et en réalité, donc, ce qu'il dit, c'est que seul le patriotisme et la religion peuvent, pendant un long moment, faire avancer l'universalité des citoyens. Ce qui veut dire que lorsqu'on est dans les mouvements de masse, lorsque nous sommes dans des mobilisations collectives, le ressort, c'est la passion.
Tocqueville says that in reality, patriotism and religion are the only things that over a long period of time can advance the universality of citizens. This means that in the case of mass movements, of collective mobilization, this is the only thing that can serve as a passion.
Nevertheless, there is a sovereignty of reason because cependant il y a une domination de la raison dans le champ institutionnel, dans le champ de l'organisation institutionnelle. C'est la raison qui domine et c'est elle qui permet effectivement que la société s'organise de façon à ce que le contrat social puisse fonctionner sur la base de la raison, sur la base de références qui puissent nous être communes.
However, the domination of reason takes place in the institutional field, the organization of institutions. The reason dominates in such a way that it allows for societies to be organized on a social contract that functions on reason as the shared reference.
Et pour finir, la pensée donc, des Lumières, la pensée de la raison s'impose dans l'organisation de la société. La passion demeure le moteur de la mobilisation sociale et donc des progrès, c'est-à-dire des conquêtes sociales. Mais l'organisation des pouvoirs, comme l'évoquait Justice Stephen Breyer, l'organisation des pouvoirs repose sur des raisonnements et des raisonnements récurrents. Je pense à Montesquieu, par exemple, qui n'est pas le seul à penser l'organisation des pouvoirs, mais qui cependant pose des principes clairs sur l'organisation des pouvoirs lorsqu'il explique qu'il faut que par l'organisation, par l'organisation des choses, le pouvoir doit arrêter le pouvoir. Donc on est dans une pensée de raison, mais une pensée de raison qui induit une organisation pratique pour rendre fonctionnelles les institutions. Everything is clear?
Yeah, just have to write it down.
Thank you.
Now I have to read it.
Not clear, not that clear.
The thought of the Enlightenment was reason imposed to organize society. Behind that, the passion was motoring mobilization and social conquests. So the organization of power, as Justin Stephen Breyer said, was based on recurrent reasoning. I'm thinking of Montesquieu, who said that he was not alone in thinking of power and conceiving power, but that he put forth clear principles for the organization of power. Through organizing things, power must stop power. That is to say that he thought about the way that reason induces us to have organizations be functional as institutions. Practical organizations be functional as institutions.
It's faithful.
I hope
Thank
so.
you. Yeah.
Beautiful. Justice Breyer, in her powerful intervention, Minister Taubira said that it's that central antithesis between reason and passion that defines American and French constitutionalism. And just as Madison, as you said, defined faction as any group, a majority or a minority, animated by passion rather than reason, so the founders, channeling the French theorist Montesquieu, separated powers vertically and horizontally to have ambition clash with ambition. And she also reminded us that it was another great French theorist, Tocqueville, who said that the only way to sustain the Republic would be patriotism and the spirit of religion, and self-interest rightly understood, people restraining their own passion with reason so they could achieve the virtuous self-mastery that was necessary for citizenship. As you reflect on her great intervention, contrast and compare the American and French experiences ever since the founding. Why was the French Revolution violent in a way that the American was not? And over the courses of the 19th and 20th century, how have France and America succeeded in mastering passion with reason?
No, I don't know, obviously.
If anyone knows, you
I know
do.
Robespierre was not necessarily so great, but nonetheless, what you saw, through my mind, is the difference. You see, Madame Taubira had a set of principles. That's French. I go over there, I wanted to have some examples. I go to France, I give some examples. Who cares? We want to know the principle. I go to England, I give some principles. They say, please, Shakespeare, he gave us examples. All right, now, you saw this. So I will be American, put this question. You go one step down in abstraction from what you said. I mean, Tocqueville, I tell the class, he said, when I come to America, I'm just getting near and I hear nothing but noise. What's that? It's everybody screaming at everybody. It's everybody arguing. Well, not so bad. That's how they get where they're going. All right. Now, I heard this. What was her name? The woman who was on the Conseil Constitutionnel. Not Veil, Madame Veil. Yeah.
Simone Veil.
Simone Veil, yes. And she was good. She said, let's make it plus concret, liberté, égalité, fraternité. Un peu plus concrète. Moi, je dis comme Américain, liberté, we understand that. It's all over the Constitution. Égalité, we understand that as a goal. We're working towards it, we hope. See? And then she said, Madame Veil, mais fraternité, qu'est-ce que c'est que fraternité? Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire, fraternité, exactement? Comment est-ce qu'on peut le faire concrète? And now that's what has occurred to me recently. What is fraternité? Well, we have 330 million people. 330 millions de citoyens aux États-Unis. Beaucoup. Beaucoup. Chaque race possible, chaque religion possible, chaque idée possible. Ma mère m'avait dit, il n'y a pas une idée plus bizarre qu'il n'y a quelqu'un aux États-Unis qui ne tient pas. And then she'd add, ils habitent tous à Los Angeles.
I'll just translate that. We have each race, we have each religion, we have every possible idea. My mother used to say, there's no strange idea that's not represented in this country. And then she would add, and they all live in Los Angeles.
But how? You see this? Read the newspaper. Qu'est-ce qu'on va faire avec les immigrés? Qu'est-ce qu'on va faire avec toutes ces différences? Comment est-ce que nous allons être certains que nous avons un pays où chacun vive ensemble dans un état de paix et de productivité? Ça, c'est un problème pratique, pas théorique. Et ici, vous avez la réponse. Bravo, parce que nous en avons besoin. En France, à ce moment, est-ce qu'il y a le même problème? Je crois que oui. Je crois qu'exactement le même problème est en France et partout en Europe. Et je crois qu'ils n'ont pas la réponse. Ils ne savent non plus que faire exactement. Et j'ai entendu le président de la France, Chirac, quand il était ici, il a parlé au Congrès. Et il a dit le problème de l'immigration, ça c'est une impossibilité de résoudre. Pourquoi? Parce que les gens peuvent marcher. Et s'il n'y a pas de bonnes conditions dans leur pays natal, ils vont venir. Et la seule chose à faire est d'être certain que dans ces autres pays, ils peuvent vivre. Ils peuvent vivre dans le pays natal avec assez pour manger, avec un toit, avec une civilisation. Ça, c'est très difficile. Mais je crois à ce moment, les différences entre la France, l'Europe et les États-Unis, pas très important. Le problème d'être en face de ces problèmes de démocratie, de liberté, d'égalité et surtout comment vivre ensemble comme une famille ou comme des personnes qui s'aiment. Ça, c'est le même. Ça, c'est le même. Et personne à ce moment a la solution et j'espère qu'on va le trouver entre eux.
I hope so too. I hope so. Yeah. Sorry.
That much. Where did we start? We are all immigrants. We all have differences here. And so how can we be certain in this country that everyone can live together in a state of peace and productivity? That is both a practical and theoretic problem. Do you have the answer? I don't. And I think that France has the same problem, don't you? Yes, I think they do, and Europe does as well. And I think that they don't have the answer either. We don't know what the solution is. I remember hearing the president of France, Jacques Chirac, addressing Congress, and he said regarding the problem of immigration, it's an impossible problem to resolve so long as people can walk. Because if they have poor conditions in the country where they were born, then they're going to come here. So the only thing that we can do is to make sure that in these other countries, conditions are good, people have enough to eat, they have a roof to sleep under, and so on. So I think that the differences between France, Europe, and the United States are not so important at the moment. What we all face is this problem of democracy and freedom, which is how to live together as one family, how to love one another. It's the same problem, and there is currently no solution. I hope we will find it.
Madame Taubira, as Justice Breyer says, in France, in America, and around the world, we're facing this problem of how to live together productively. And once again, passion rather than reason seems ascendant. One solution that the American founders offered is civic education and teaching citizens the habits of virtue and self-mastery that would allow us to keep the republic. What is a solution in France? And if civic education is important, what ideals are important to teach French citizens so they can keep the French Republic?
Oh, I do believe that civic education is very important, but I regret it takes a lot of time. It takes a long time, and we are in a hurry. So I'd like to be back to the French, how do you say, devise, liberté, égalité, fraternité.
The French motto.
Motto?
Motto. M-O-T-T-O.
M-O-T-O.
Motto.
Motto. Motto. Thank you. It's easier to pronounce in French. Devise.
I agree.
Because I do believe that these words are not only words, they are values, but they need to be alive every day. And when French adopt the motto, liberté, freedom, equality, brotherhood, how do you say it, fraternité?
Fraternity.
Fraternity, it's better. I agree with that. They are not only words, people fought for that. Lorsque c'est la Deuxième République, 1848, qui stabilise la devise liberté, égalité, fraternité. La Révolution française a eu lieu en 1789. La Première République est installée, elle ne dure pas longtemps, en 1792. Ensuite arrive la Convention, mais c'est une période très troublée et très bousculée. Parce que la France est un empire. Et c'est le temps de la traite et de l'esclavage. C'est-à-dire que c'est une période... I speak too much?
We're okay.
Non? C'est une période où, officiellement, se pratique le commerce d'êtres humains qui sont donc dans le développement du capitalisme européen. Ce commerce se pratique sur le continent africain et les personnes capturées sur le continent africain sont transportées dans les Amériques, dans les Caraïbes et dans l'océan Indien. Il y a des insurrections en permanence, il y a des insurrections. Et en 1791, donc 2 ans après la Révolution française, c'est une insurrection massive à Saint-Domingue, Haïti, la plus prospère des colonies françaises. Is that too much?
Now we could come in, yeah.
Okay. La plus prospère des colonies françaises, qui va se révolter et réclamer la liberté, y compris au nom de la Déclaration française des droits de l'homme et du citoyen. C'est-à-dire que le principe est posé, la valeur est énoncée, mais la mise en pratique est prise en faute. Et ce sont ceux qui subissent le plus cette mise en faute de la mise en pratique, cette faute de la mise en pratique, ce sont eux qui vont dire, mais attention, la liberté, ça veut dire la liberté pour tout le monde, la liberté pour chacune, pour chacun. Et c'est ainsi que les valeurs prennent sens et contenu.
Là,
je m'arrête là,
ouais,
ça suffit,
Ouais.
it's enough. And I'm going to explain fraternity right after.
So it's really at the time of the French Second Republic of 1849 that this motto of liberté, égalité, fraternité, freedom, equality, fraternity, was stabilized. We had the revolution in 1789. Then the First Republic was in 1792. It did not last long. That was followed by the Convention, and these were very troubled, turbulent times because France was an empire, and this was a period when there was a slave trade. So it is a period when officially the trade in human beings was being practiced. The development of European capitalism took place through people on the African continent being captured and transported to be enslaved in the Americas, the Caribbean, and so on. And throughout this period, there were always insurrections. In 1791, 2 years after the French Revolution, there came a massive insurrection in San Domingo, Haiti, which is the most prosperous French colony at the time. Now, in this revolt, what was demanded was the freedom of those who included people who had, sorry, I'll take that back. In this revolt, what was demanded was freedom for everyone, in the name of the French Declaration of Rights of the Citizen. What these people revolting were saying was, you have pronounced a value, but the practice of this value is faulty. It is at fault for there are people who are not experiencing it. It can only work if there is freedom for all, and that is how the values truly come to exist.
Thank you. May I try to explain with a few words, through a few words, what I hear about fraternity? C'est tout à fait contemporain. C'est tout à fait contemporain. Fraternity. Donc, cette devise qui s'installe en 1848, 1848, c'est la Deuxième République française. Elle est très courte. Elle dure de 1848 à 1852, 51-52. Et cette République va abolir l'esclavage pour la deuxième et dernière fois dans les colonies françaises. Elle avait été abolie en 1794, rétablie par Napoléon en 1802 et abolie définitivement en 1848. Cette deuxième et belle république, qui est une république de la solidarité, une république du droit de vote seulement pour les hommes, only for men, but only for men. It's going to last a whole comment on dit, un siècle? Century. A whole century. Et donc, c'est dans cette devise qu'entre la fraternité. En quoi la fraternité est très contemporaine? C'est que le Conseil constitutionnel français a donné un contenu à la fraternité lorsqu'il y a peut-être 3 ou 4 ans, des personnes qui pratiquaient la solidarité avec des personnes réfugiées, non, des Français dans la vallée de la Roya, dans le sud de la France. Des Français se montrent solidaires avec des réfugiés qui arrivent en France par le sud de la France. Et donc traversent des montagnes et passent dans la vallée de la Roya, et ces personnes, ces Français, accueillent ces réfugiés. Et une disposition de loi française punit ceux qui aident les personnes à entrer irrégulièrement. So, is it too much?
A little bit more is okay.
Okay. 2 sentences, 2 more. Thank you. I'm bargaining. Et donc, des personnes ont été traduites en justice, condamnées pour avoir aidé des réfugiés à passer la frontière. Ces personnes ont fait appel et le Conseil constitutionnel a été saisi, et le Conseil constitutionnel a reconnu que cette aide est un acte de fraternité. Et donc, la décision de justice a pu être annulée. Donc, c'était un acte qui était illégal, puisque la loi interdisait d'aider quelqu'un à entrer illégalement en France. Mais en s'appuyant sur la devise et le principe de fraternité, le Conseil constitutionnel a reconnu qu'un acte pareil donne de la consistance à la notion et à la valeur de fraternité. Moi, je trouve ça éblouissant. How do you say éblouissant? Shining. Comment?
C'est un peu, it blows me away. It's
Not only me, it's
it
blows,
dazzles me. That's
yeah,
much nicer.
yeah. The world, not only me, the world, the whole world. It's what I believe. So, thank you.
I'm going to tell you why fraternity is an absolutely contemporary notion. So, in 1848, there was this Second Republic in France, which was very short. It lasted from 1848 to 1851, 1852. And this republic abolished slavery for the second and last time in the French colonies. It had initially been abolished in 1794. Then Napoleon brought it back in 1802. And this Second Republic was a beautiful republic under which solidarity was instituted, the right to vote only for men, and that would last for a whole century. But this motto of fraternity came, fraternity in liberté, égalité, fraternité. This is how it is so contemporary. 3 or 4 years ago, the French Constitutional Council gave fraternity real content. There were French people in the south of France who had shown their solidarity with refugees who were arriving in France, crossing the mountains into the south of the country, and these French people had welcomed them. Now, there was a French law against this kind of behavior. And so some of these French people were taken to court and sentenced for helping refugees cross the border. That was considered an illegal act. But they appealed, and it went to the Constitutional Council, which recognized that this act of helping people was an act of fraternity. And so the decision of the lower court was canceled. So what had been an illegal act, because the law forbids one to help bring someone into France, was used by the Constitutional Council to give the motto of liberté, égalité, fraternité, the word fraternity, to give that consistency. And I find this dazzling.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Justice Breyer, why does America talk of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness rather than life, liberty, and fraternité? Fraternité is a more collective concept, and our history is very different in that respect.
One, the reason you put forth is because it was a way of referring to control through reason. And you have many chapters on that. So I recommend them. As to, well, is all this different? No. What I've heard in the last few minutes, no, not so different. What have you described? And you think we don't have that? I mean, we did have, just as they had Voltaire, Madame de Ferrin, whatever her name was, but, and Condorcet and so forth, and thinkers, and we had people in the next room over here writing these things down, and then they had a few backward steps. And they were all over the place. You've listed a few. And we had slavery, of course, going on then. And we had the Fugitive Slave Act up in Massachusetts where the judges were supposed to send the slaves back. And we had a civil war. And we had, when I was a law clerk for Justice Goldberg, they had not got Brown enforced yet, really. It took years. It took quite a few years. And we've had plenty of ups and downs, plenty. And that's why Kennedy, Senator Kennedy, whom I used to work for, he'd say the country goes like this. Goes like this. So what do I tell the high school students whom I like to talk to, given that background? Not so different from France. And so what do I say? I say what I learned working for Senator Kennedy, Ted Kennedy. He'd first say to his staff, I was the staff person, he'd say, don't try to get credit for everything. He said, if it works out, there'll be plenty of credit, and if it doesn't work out, who wants it? Then he said, look, when people don't agree with you, when we're having trouble getting through a bill, or they're doing something we don't like, the first thing you do is you go find someone whom you believe is intelligent and who thinks the opposite that you think. Then you sit down at the table with them and you talk to them. Wait, don't talk too much. Listen. And when you listen, eventually, they will really say something that you really agree with. And when they say that thing you really agree with, what you say is, what a good idea you have. And maybe we can get somewhere. How far? 30%. He says, if you get 30%, take it. Don't try to be a hero to your followers and get nothing. Take the 30%. And I saw him so many times where the press would say, Senator Kennedy, You did such a good job on that bill, and he would say, don't thank me, thank Orrin Hatch, the Republican. He came up with the idea. Now, why do I say that, and why does that make me optimistic? Not because what I've said is so wonderful. That's not the reason. The reason is that the 7th grade or 8th grade or 9th grade students, have you tried talking to them about something like this? They're looking out the window. Or all of a sudden, they stop looking out the window, and they're interested. And they come over, they sit in their seats, and they're looking at me. And when I see the look in their eye, I believe that it shows interest. And I believe that interest is an interest in making this country work as it should. All right? And I might be wrong, but it's that look in their eye. The look in their eye when you explain how you try to get agreement, some agreement anyway, among 330 million people, that makes me not totally pessimistic, but somewhat optimistic about the future that they will bring us.
Beautiful. Madame Taubira, Justice Breyer's optimism is always inspiring. He is a great teacher and missionary for the American idea, and he's working with the National Constitution Center to inspire learners of all ages across America to learn about the principles of liberty, equality, and democracy as our 250th anniversary approaches. You have the last word in this great discussion. What do you want the learners in France to know about French democracy, and what optimism can you share that they will kindle to the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity?
Optimism of fightness, combativity. The word exists, combativity? No? It's a, yeah. That's my optimism, because I'm not very optimistic every day. I'm unquiet. Unquiet? Inquiet.
Unquiet. What?
Unquiet. Thank you, sir. Je pense nous avons commencé à parler de l'éducation à la démocratie. Et je disais que l'éducation à la démocratie a un inconvénient, c'est que ça prend du temps. Mais c'est indispensable. Je pense à Condorcet, un des grands esprits de la Révolution française, un esprit très libre, mais son épouse, Sophie de Grouchy, était encore plus éblouissante que lui. Excuse me. Mrs. de Grouchy, who was Condorcet's spouse, was a great spirit too, just a little bit more greater than Condorcet. But we know Condorcet a lot more. Now, please note Sophie de Grouchy. Okay. Et Condorcet disait que l'instruction publique doit être dispensée aux garçons et aux filles. C'est à la fin du XVIIIe siècle, 1793-92 par là. L'instruction publique doit être dispensée aux garçons et aux filles, et l'instruction publique doit préparer des citoyens difficiles à gouverner. Donc des citoyens et des citoyennes difficiles à gouverner. Donc pour répondre à votre question, mon optimisme est lié au fait que par l'éducation, par la transmission, par l'accès au savoir, aux cultures, aux valeurs, aux connaissances, on prépare des citoyennes et des citoyens en plénitude. Mais on doit accepter, c'est pour cela que j'évoque Condorcet et Sophie de Grouchy, on doit accepter que ces personnes-là ne soient pas obéissantes. Mon inquiétude, ça c'est mon optimisme, et mon inquiétude, c'est que nous observons à travers le monde une chape d'enfermement, de méfiance, de défiance, de rejet, de refus, de la diversité du monde, de la complexité du monde. Et c'est une dynamique qui est très lourde. Elle est lourde ici aux États-Unis, elle est lourde en Europe. Et personnellement, j'ai des inquiétudes pour la France, parce que ce sont des idées d'exclusion qui travaillent dans le fond la société française. Je mettrai juste... Oui.
Well, we've started to talk about education to democracy, education of democracy. And this is a very important thing, but there's an inconvenience to it, which is that it takes time, and yet it is indispensable. I'm thinking of Condorcet, who's one of the truly great minds of the revolution, the French Revolution, though I must emphasize that his wife, Sophie de Brouchy, was an even more dazzling mind. But it's more often Condorcet that we remember. So Condorcet said that public education must be dispensed to boys and girls. This is at the end of the 18th century, 1792. So boys and girls must receive public education, which must prepare them to be citizens who are hard to govern. So men and women who will be citizens who are hard to govern. My optimism is connected with education, transmission, the learning of knowledge, of values that prepare us to become full citizens. But we must accept that these citizens are not obedient. And that's why I bring up Condorcet and Sophie de Brouchy. Now, I've spoken about my optimism. My worry is that I observe in the world this cloak of being closed in, of suspicion, of rejection of the diversity and complexity of the world. And this is a very heavy dynamic, both in the United States and in Europe. And personally, I'm worried about France because these ideas of exclusion are working very deeply in the country.
Well, I think this is a superb note to end, and it calls to mind a very similar discussion between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson about Condorcet. And Jefferson is full of optimism after reading Condorcet about the possibility for universal reason to diffuse across the land, and is excited about a new technology of the press that in the hands of an enlightened class of journalists that he, quoting Condorcet, calls the literati, will allow reason rather than passion to prevail. And Adams scoffs at his optimism and says there is nativism and passion afoot in the land, and ever since the time of the ancients, you've needed government to be restrained to prevent Caesar from seducing the people into surrendering liberty. So they weren't sure whether or not the experiment would succeed, but they both agreed that what was crucial was public education, was thoughtful dialogue between leaders like Justice Breyer and Minister Taubira to inspire citizens to learn about the principles of equality and democracy and fraternity. Please join me in thanking our guests. We're done? Merci.
It's already over.
Yeah.
Oh non, c'est moi.